You may not know this about me, but I am probably one of the biggest Hazbin Hotel fans out there. I had literally never heard of it or Vivziepop until the day that the pilot dropped, and when I laid my eyes upon it, I absolutely fell in love. And as someone who just fell in love with a series that only has one episode out so far would do, I took to YouTube to listen to random people talk about it. As I watched the seemingly endless stream of content about this original net animation, I heard a lot of stuff that I agreed with and a lot of stuff I disagreed with, and since there's no point in me repeating what everyone else has already said about why Hazbin Hotel is so great, I figured it would be much more interesting to address the most common criticisms that this show receives and why those criticisms don't really resonate with me. And remember the title of this video, I'm talking about the real criticisms that this show gets, not the accusations people on Twitter have made about the show being homophobic, racist, etc. It only takes the slightest hint of critical thinking to realize how retarded that is, and as such I find it pointless to entertain those criticisms when they have already been addressed thoroughly and torn apart by so many people. And when there are so many more legitimate and good faith criticisms of this show that I find much more interesting and thought-provoking when it comes to how they apply to my experience with the pilot. So that's what I'm going to be focusing on here. And of course, this video contains spoilers for Hazbin Hotel. With that said, I'd first like to talk about this show's sound effects. The pilot of Hazbin Hotel has a lot of sound effects, and many people felt like they were used in excess. And while it certainly uses more sound effects than almost every cartoon I've ever watched, I was never put off by them outside of the one 20-second clip that everyone who points this out uses to back up their stance. I totally get using one specific example as a concise summary of your criticisms with a piece of art, but I just don't think that this 20-second clip is representative of the entire pilot. And again, Hazbin Hotel definitely has more sound effects than your average cartoon, but I almost never found it overbearing. Maybe I just have a bigger threshold for how much auditory information I can absorb before I get bothered by it, but I found that the frequent use of sound effects not only weren't a hindrance in my viewing experience, but actually aided the pilot in crafting a very unhinged energy, which is a huge part of the appeal for me, and I'm sure many others. In the same vein as the sound effects, the character designs, animation, and editing, just the visuals in general, have also received a lot of criticism for being excessive. There are a lot of cuts in this pilot that have a lot of stuff going on in them, and a lot of people felt like this hindered their time with it. I've heard multiple people make the point that Hazbin animates its characters too much, particularly in that it will have multiple characters being animated on screen at the same time, which they find distracting. For me, however, it was one of my favorite things about the pilot. I think that the reason stuff like the eggs moving around in the background of Serpentius's airship, or the less than half a second cut of everyone reacting to his return at the end of the episode, or any of the characters emoting or moving around outside of the central focus of the frame, bothers so many people and not me, is because they don't enjoy simply being in the world of Hazbin Hotel as much as I do. Everything about Hazbin's aesthetic resonates with my personal tastes in media. I love high-intensity, chaotic energy, characters that act wacky and goofy, over-the-top violence, drugs, sex, vulgarity, etc. And keep in mind, this is stuff I like in media, not real life, obviously. What this means is that I can derive enjoyment from just having the show be on my monitor, almost no matter what is actually on screen, so long as it is Hazbin Hotel. So when my visual attention is drawn from the character talking and towards some random shit going on elsewhere, it's like you're distracting me from something good with something that is also good. And this also has the benefit of dramatically enhancing the rewatch potential. Going back and watching the pilot for a second, third, fourth, even fifth time, I was constantly noticing all those little details which just made my opinion of the show grow even more and more positive. Seeing characters' facial expressions change in the background, or having multiple people doing different actions all at once, or the super fast blinking you'll miss it cuts, gave the show and the world of the show a wonderful feeling of density to me, and this made the setting feel very real. Also, slight tangent, I literally don't get why people don't like the editing of this joke.
And what can you do, my effeminate fellow?
I can suck your dick.
Ha! No.
I don't care what anyone else says, the comedic timing was perfect, you guys are the crazy ones, I'm not the crazy one, shut up, I like it, it's good. Anyway, while I'm on the visuals, I'd also like to touch on the character designs of this show. Now, a lot of people have criticized the character designs in this show for a multitude of reasons, including being too complicated, using too similar a color palette to the environment and other characters, as well as a lack of variety in body types. They find that this adds to the show feeling too jumbled and hard to follow. Now, this is one of the biggest points of contention in this video for me, but it's also relatively unnuanced. I just Disagree. I find every one of the character designs unique and memorable on their own. I don't find myself losing track of them in the background, though to be fair, the show does often put a little halo effect around them to make the silhouette pop more, and I love all the intricate details in them. Now, I completely recognize that a lot of the criticism Vivzie gets on this front is coming from the perspective of making the production of Hazbin more efficient. If you have simpler models with less patterns and detail, it won't take nearly as much time and effort to animate for obvious reasons, and if we're talking about production, I absolutely agree. There is some work that should be done here to make Hazbin Hotel an easier show to work on, but if we're talking about the final product alone, I love these complicated designs. I love the bows and buttons on everyone's outfits, I love the spots of color on some of the characters' faces, and I'll say it, I love the floating X over Vaggy's eye. Do I think it would be better for the show's future to keep elements like these? Hell no. But do I like them? Hell yes. I also love everyone's body shapes, and I find that while yes, they don't have much variety, everyone has a unique enough silhouette thanks to a combination of differing heights, body extremities, and hair that I can't remember ever getting them mixed up. And this isn't to say they're fantastic. I've seen countless other animated shows that have much more varied character designs which work to their benefit, and I think that implementing this into Hazbin Hotel would improve it, but I don't really feel like the character designs are a negative as it seems some people feel. To me, they are great, they just could be even greater. Another thing Hazbin has received criticism for is its tone, specifically in contrast with its content. I am of course referring to the presence of extremely provocative imagery and language mixed with the very wacky 2000s Nickelodeon vibe of the show. Now, thankfully, of the many review and discussion videos I've seen about Hazbin, I found almost no videos that didn't at least acknowledge that this type of storytelling will appeal to some people more than others. It isn't uncommon to find people who don't do a good job communicating that even though they might not like a certain thing, that doesn't mean that people who do like that thing are wrong and have uncredible reasons for enjoyment. As such, I found it nice to see that the general analysis community, at least on YouTube, was taking such a healthy approach to talking about this show's tone and how some people find it jarring. And since I am not one of those people, it feels especially good that almost no one seems to think that I have the mental capacity of a 7-year-old for enjoying these attributes of Hazbin. I touched on it earlier, but the wacky, vulgar, and juvenile nature of the show appeals to my sensibilities perfectly because I am juvenile. I'm currently 17 and I love dick jokes, gay jokes, suicide jokes, etc., which are generally considered mature content, but I also love immature or unintellectual content. Fucking salad. There are just some types of shows that are going to generally appeal mostly towards teenagers because of the commonalities in many teenagers' lives that they will have likely experienced up until that point. This doesn't mean that you have to be a teenager to enjoy Hazbin Hotel, nor does it mean that a teenager can't enjoy something that was made for an older or younger demographic. It's literally just a statistical commonality. While I wouldn't describe this particular example as juvenile in the same way that the majority of the pilot is, I do think it perfectly demonstrates that Hazbin Hotel knows exactly what audience it's going for. In the prequel comic about Charlie and Vaggy recruiting Angel Dust to the hotel, we get this exchange. Seem familiar? Well, if not, it's probably because you didn't grow up watching Lilo and Stitch as a child, rewatching it as a teenager, realizing it's an absolute masterpiece, and then deciding that it was literally your favorite movie ever.
Does it have to be this dog?
Yes, he's good. I can tell.
Now, Lilo and Stitch is by no means a niche topic, but tell me, when was the last time you saw it referenced anywhere in modern media that wasn't specifically made for discussing the movie? That's what I thought. So you can only imagine how wide of a smile this little gag brought to my face. And I'd be willing to bet that a good amount of the viewers of this video felt the same way. After all, what type of person would likely click on a Hazbin Hotel video almost a year after the pilot dropped? Probably someone who's a fan of the show. And what type of person is probably a fan of the show? Probably the type of person whose age gives them a good chance to have had this absolute chef's kiss of a movie be part of their childhood. Like I said, I haven't seen that many people try to discredit those who enjoy Hazbin Hotel for these attributes, but I also haven't seen anyone really representing the viewpoints of those people, probably because they're young and haven't had the time to specialize their skills in a medium of analysis and communication. I'd probably be that way too if I hadn't become obsessed with the types of video essays that I currently create. Moving on, there is one final criticism of Hazbin Hotel that I want to address, but it's not quite as simple as different strokes for different folks, like what I just discussed. I mean, ultimately that is what everything in this video boils down to, but you get what I mean. I am talking about the too many characters / one-note one-note characterization slash cliched character archetypes argument. A large chunk of the audience when Hazbin Hotel first dropped noticed that it introduced a lot of characters in a proportionally short amount of time, meaning that there wasn't any time to develop them beyond broad archetypes. The pilot is 30 minutes long, and of the main cast we get introduced to Charlie, Vaggie, Angel Dust, Alistair, Nifty, and Husker. That's 6 characters in 30 minutes, and if we expand it to the more tertiary cast, we can add Cherry Bomb, Serpentius, and Katie Killjoy to the list. 9 characters in 30 minutes. Obviously, they did not have the time to dive deep into any one particular character. Plenty of people have discussed their disappointment in the pilot for not exploring Charlie's relationship with her parents, or getting more explanation on Alistair's motives and backstory, or fleshing out Nifty and Husker further, etc. And I totally understand why this stuff would be a letdown to those people, but for some reason it never even registered as disappointing for me. And for the longest time, I never really understood why, that is, until I considered the circumstances surrounding my first watch of the pilot. Remember, I had never even heard of Hazbin Hotel before the pilot dropped, whereas a good amount of people had been following its development process for over a year. That kind of weight is bound to build up people's expectations quite a bit, and perhaps this explains why some viewers were very sad that so many of the characters are so one-note, and why this doesn't bother me at all. It seems that this criticism stems from looking at the pilot through the lens of it being its own little story from start to finish to encapsulate what the rest of the show is going to be like. But I went into it thinking of it as simply being the beginning of a story, the opening act. I didn't find it unsatisfying that we didn't get any huge amounts of character fleshing out or development because I was never expecting any. All I needed was an aesthetic that appealed to me and something to make me feel confident that the show would get properly fleshed out in the future, which the story absolutely delivered on. And the absolute perfect example of this is Angel Dust, my absolute favorite character slash thing in Hazbin Hotel, period. I was immediately hooked on him from his incredibly attractive character design, stellar voice acting by Michael Kovic, who conveys an amazing amount of personality, and his general behavior, which, as I've already established, lines up extremely well with my sensibilities. Now, all of this is very surface level, and I likely would have considered Charlie my favorite since she gets more characterization and we just learn more about her, had it not been for this very brief moment in the pilot.
It's probably a good idea to get some actual food in this place, you know, to feed all the wayward souls you got in here.
Boom, immediately it is made clear that Angel Dust has a soft side and there's more going on in his relationship with Charlie and the hotel. This was all I needed to be frothing at the mouth in anticipation for more Angel Dust content, and it made him my favorite character even before the prequel comic and Addict music video, both of which expand on his story. And of course, these external works which further the canon of Hazbin only made me love Angel even more and reassured what I believed after finishing the pilot, that if this show got picked up by a network, the creators would have plenty of story to expand on. Well, would you look at that? The story of Angel Dust is the perfect demonstration of why looking at a pilot through different lenses of what it's trying to accomplish can have a large impact on your level of enjoyment. And obviously, pretty much every Hazbin Hotel review or analysis on YouTube was made with only the context of the pilot, so it's not like I'm saying it was unreasonable for these people to analyze the show on its own merits. And even still, most of the videos that I've seen make this criticism acknowledge that they are looking at the pilot as its own entity, and also aren't trying to discredit the opinions of other people who see it differently from them. Honestly, the overall critical community of Hazbin Hotel is one of the most constructive and healthiest I've seen of a show in a pretty long time. All of the criticisms I've argued against in this video are completely valid, and I in no way want to make people who disagree with me feel bad. I only felt like making this video because although I don't believe that anyone would think less of me for having these opinions, I also haven't really seen anyone represent my opinions on this subject matter, and hopefully if you felt the same way, this video managed to resonate with you. Let me know if that is the case down in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit the like button. If you like these kinds of video essays and want to see more content from me, you can subscribe, hit the bell icon, you know the drill, who cares. Also, unrelated, but I wanted to throw this in here, if you're an Angel Dust stan like myself, you should totally check out the channel Laz Briar. He isn't the voice actor of Angel Dust, but he sounds nearly identical to Michael Kovic's performance, and he does this video series that's like borderline ASMR called Angel Dust X Listener. They're fantastic, and he only has like 4,000 subs, which is a fucking crime against humanity. I just needed to show his content as much as possible, and direct message to Laz if you're watching this, I love you, thank you, and the most recent Angel Dust X Listener video, Angel Dust Helps You with a Panic Attack, was amazing. Okay, I'm done now. Thank you guys for watching this video, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next one.